Hi, it's Clark Mortensen from Mort'sSportsCorner on Vintage Radio 105.5, sponsored by the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Join us every Saturday from 10 to noon for our one-on-one interviews and sports ranging from T-ball to the big leagues. All right, we're back. All right, first guest we have today is Paul Scranton. Paul's a Moline native, correct?
Correct.
Paul's a Moline native, and he is the chairman of the board of directors for the John Deere Classic. Paul, how long have you been with the board of directors for JDC?
This is my 8th year on the board and my 5th year on the exec board.
And how did you get started working with the JDC?
You know, back actually, I first volunteered for the John Deere Classic in the early 80s. My parents, as well as my great aunt and uncle, would come up from Quincy and marshal the tournament every year. And so when I was 10, 11 years old, they dragged me along and marshaled several holes and had a great experience. And when my wife and I, Emily, moved back to town in 2001, volunteered as a marshal a few years, and then was asked to be on the board of directors about 8 years ago.
All right, so you've got quite a lengthy experience with the board with the John Deere Classic itself. When you first started out, you were talking about coming up from Quincy, you say?
Well, I was here in Moline, but my great aunt and uncle came up from Quincy and would stay with us for the week, and they would usually volunteer 3-4 days.
So you're going back to the Hardys, and
this was the QC High Life Open, I think it was, or the Miller High Life Open.
Oh, way back.
Way back.
Way back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't try to age me too much, but yes.
Well, I'm about right there with you. So, yeah, it's. Do you get to play in the Pro-Am while you're doing part of this?
This year I do. So this year I will get to play in the Wednesday Pro-Am and actually be in what's considered the lead group, which is the noon tee time on the first hole on Wednesday. And typically would get to play with the defending champion. The chairman always does that and gets to play with Sam Allen, the CEO of John Deere, and a couple of John Deere's big customers. But Jordan Spieth's not going to be back this year to defend his title. So we are going to play with Zach Johnson, which is going to be a fantastic experience.
Well, and Zach's not the returning champion, but he's probably the local favorite.
I would have to believe so, and he's been a part of this tournament now for close to 15 years, and obviously a past champion here. Also a Drake grad, which is where both my wife and I went. So we've developed a nice relationship with Zach and his wife, and so it'll be a special time.
Yeah, and Zach, like I said, Zach's probably the local favorite. For those of us that are Illini fans, we kind of stick maybe to the Stricker side, so there's a little Iowa-Illinois rivalry going on there. Is Steve Stricker going to be back this year?
He'll definitely be back, and he's playing well. He's played a limited schedule again this year. He's 49, so next year he'll be midway through the season. He'll be eligible for the senior tour, but he played really well over at the British. He's played well in just about every tournament that he's played in, and he's such a great ambassador for the John Deere Classic that we look forward to having him here. And of course, we've got Illini Day, I believe is Friday this year, and we'll have several Fighting Illini players, former players, including Scott Langley and Stricker, obviously, Luke Guthrie, DA Points, and then one of our sponsors exemptions this year is Charlie Danielson, who just graduated from Illinois, was their number one player on what was arguably one of the best teams in the country the past several years. And Charlie just turned pro and is playing on the web.com, and he'll be here, and he's a good young kid that we had in for Media Day, and we look forward to seeing how he can do.
And for those of you that don't know, Illinois seems to be year in, year out. They are one of the top teams in the NCAA, top 10 or 15 at least.
They really are. They have a phenomenal program. They have arguably one of the best coaches in the country in Mike Small. Mike has really helped develop the players and taken that program to another level. Mike has he's qualified for the PGA Championship multiple times on his own, a very accomplished player, and really helps the players understand the mental aspect of the game and what it takes. And they have perennially now for close to a decade been in the top 10 in the country.
Yeah, and getting back to Steve Stricker, he was the John Deere Classic Open back-to-back champion in, I believe it was 2010, 11, and 12.
That's correct. And almost made a fourth in a row.
Yeah, they had a playoff, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
Had a playoff with Zach, wasn't it? No, it was not Harmon. I can't remember who won that year. Terrible. But how unfair is that? He's going to be on the seniors tour, coming off just a few years after he's been playing at the top of his game for quite a while.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what he decides to do. For the last several years, he has, like I say, play a very limited schedule, focusing on the majors and some of his just favorite tournaments, some of the courses that he typically plays well at. And so I'll be curious to see if he continues to do that, since he's competing still so well on the main tour, as to whether or not he plays a full schedule on the seniors tour, just plays maybe some of the senior majors, but continues on the PGA Tour for a few years. Vijay Singh has done something similar. Vijay's still competitive on the regular tour, and obviously there's a lot more money to be earned on the regular tour.
Vijay's also a former John Deere Classic Open winner.
He is. Yep.
How many other returning champions are coming back?
We have several returning champions. I guess I didn't look to see exactly the number. Mark Hensby just got back in our field yesterday, and so he'll be back. Stricker, Brian Harmon. Trying to think who else might be back. Drawing a blank right now as to what other ones. Maybe Jonathan Bird.
So quite a few. We've
got
quite a few returning champions coming back. Got a strong field. With the opposite of the Olympics, you're seeing a little bit of some of the top name players maybe going to the Olympics, or has that benefited or hurt you at all?
Well, going into the year, we really didn't know how it was going to affect us. It was really, at first, it was thought to be a negative. Then, as Claire Peterson and I, our tournament director, went out on some recruiting trips, we thought, hey, this might be a benefit for us. And we also knew that a lot of the decisions from the big names would be at the end of getting very close to tournament time, that there was such a jammed up schedule during the summer. Really, they played 3 majors and a World Golf Championship in 7 weeks. So it's pretty jammed together schedule, very unusual, very different because of the Olympics this year. And a lot of them are, I don't want to say burned out, but they need to recharge their batteries. And after our tournament, you've got 1 week with the Wyndham. That's the final tournament of the year for FedEx Cup points. And then you've got 4 FedEx Cup playoffs, and then 2 weeks later you've got the Ryder Cup. So some of these top names really have a lot of golf coming up. And so if they were in the right position as far as FedEx Cup points, then we're finding that they're wanting to take a break right now. So a few of them have decided not to play. That's fine. We have a very competitive field. We're going to put on a great show, and it's going to be a great week. And we'll see if some of these young players, we've got some very exciting sponsors exemptions. Aaron Wise, who just won the NCAA tournaments this past year for Oregon, turned pro after his sophomore year, and he just won last week on the McKinsey Tour, which is the old Canada Tour. And so he's hot right now. John Rahm is coming in. John just finished at Arizona State. He's a Spaniard that has played extremely well in the 4 or 5 professional tournaments that he's played in. He finished 4th at I believe at the PGA or the U.S. Open. He's in contention again this week, and he's coming in very hot. So it's exciting. Lee McCoy, another young kid out of Georgia, finished fourth at the Valspar tournament earlier this year in Tampa. So he's coming as well. So who knows what's going to happen? It just seems like every year for the past 10 years or so, we've just had some story that's developed during tournament week. Whether it was this kid named Jordan Spieth 3 years ago that knocks in a sand shot on the 18th hole to end up being in a playoff, and he ends up winning and goes on to get Rookie of the Year and play on the President's Cup, and then the next year win a couple of majors. So who knows if somebody in this group of young players is going to turn out to be the next Jordan Spieth or Jason Day, or time will tell, and we look forward to the week.
And that's the thing about the John Deere Classic. You have, since 2010, you've got Steve Stricker's won it 3 times. Spieth has won it twice. Harmon, throw in a Harmon here and a Zach Johnson there. But prior to 2010, it was almost if you wanted to win your first tournament, John Deere Classic is known for the first-time winners, isn't it?
It is, going back to back to the 70s and 80s. Scott Hoke won his first tournament here. He won multiple tournaments on the tour. Payne Stewart's first PGA victory was here. I believe it was 1982. David Toms won here, and that was his first PGA victory. So there has been a history of guys that have gone on. Sean O'Hare as well was very young when he won here, and he's won 5 or 6 different events. So it has been a springboard for a lot of players over the years.
It's interesting to watch. Some of the names that you just mentioned are some of the biggest names in golf, or have been the biggest names in golf. Unfortunately, Payne Stewart's life got cut short, but he was one of the most colorful golfers that we've ever seen in the PGA. And you've had a lot of first timers that came in, won the tournament, and like Jordan a few years ago, relatively unknown unless you were a close follower of the PGA, and now he is probably the man to beat in the PGA, is he not?
He is. Especially from the U.S. team. Even globally, golf right now is blessed with a bunch of young, very good role models that are all playing well. Whether it's Jordan Spieth, whether it's Ricky Fowler, Dustin Johnson, Rory McIlroy, Jason Day, all these guys are in their 20s. Mm-hmm. It's just fantastic to watch, and you don't have quite the persona of a Tiger right now. You do have Phil, who's 46, and he's knocking on the door of the senior tour, but he's still playing well. But the rest of the guys that are at the top are all in their 20s. So the PGA is pretty fortunate to have some great personalities. Most of these guys have their good head on their shoulders. They do well in the public eye. They're not going to embarrass. You don't hear any of the stories and some of the issues that you have with a lot of the other major sports, football teams, and some of the top players in football, basketball, etc. These guys are really good guys, and so golf's in a good place.
It is, and like you said, there's no negativity that ever exudes off of the PGA Tour. It's down to earth, real people. And if you go out to the Classic, if you've never been out to the Classic, what can people expect to see? What would be a day at the Classic for first timer? What could they expect?
Yeah, it really depends on what they want to do. For a lot of people, really enjoy, if they've never been out there, they enjoy walking the course. It's not an easy course to walk, especially the first couple holes. There's a lot of hills. But if you want to get the real lay of the land, and for somebody that is looking for a little exercise, it's a great way to see some absolutely beautiful vintages. There's just some great settings of the various holes, some good views of the Rock River, and it's just a absolutely beautiful piece of property. Otherwise, a lot of people simply go down below the clubhouse. Immediately behind the clubhouse, you have Pork Chop Hill, and you've got some great. If you haven't tried the butterfly pork chops, that's a must-do when you're out
Fantastic.
there. I don't know the exact number, but it's thousands that they go through during the week. And then keep on going down below the hill, and the 18th green is right there. And it's just such a great venue. You've got just kind of stadium seating. It's surrounded by the pond on one side and lots of hospitality suites all around it. Plenty of public seating as well. Great place to watch the players finish up and come in. Go down a little bit further from the hill, you can sit at the 16th green, watch a beautiful par 3. Again, you've got a view of the Rock River on one side. Short par 3, there's a lot of exciting action there. And if you want to walk 17, it's a reachable par 5. So D.A. Weibring was the architect of the course of Deere Run, and he set this course up so that we would have some phenomenal, exciting finishes, and it's come true. I mean, each year, year after year, when the players get down to the last 5 holes, really anyone can win, because there's a couple of really good birdie holes. 17's a potential eagle hole. 18, you just never know whether guys will put it into the pond, put it into the trees to the right. So it's an extremely exciting finish. So anybody that's coming out there for the first time should really check out those holes. We have the family zone that's up just kind of between the 9th tee box, behind the 7th tee, and to the south of the 8th green. And the family zone has a lot of interactive things, areas for young kids to go to. They've got some miniature golf areas there. John Deere has some different displays in there. We have a social media area that's new this year that people can get their some pictures taken in that area and tweet it, or Facebook or Snapchat, whatever they want to do. So it's a great area for people to check out there as well.
That's awesome. All right, we're going to play a couple commercials and listen to a song, and we will be right back with Mr. Scranton. That's right, and we are brought to you by the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, the heart and soul of sports. Go check them out, illowa.fca.org, ILLOWA.fca.org. Dan Pearson does a wonderful job down there showcasing the athletes. Got videos on most of them and what they're going through and what they do, which is, like I've told you time and time again on this show, this is exactly where I got the idea from it. I loved what Dan was doing down there with the FCA and with the athletes, and I wanted to showcase all the athletes I could get on here, or coaches that have done a phenomenal job, or our local pro sports. Today we're covering both the John Deere Classic and our local Class A softball, baseball team. I got softball in my mind. It's coming down to tournament time for us, and switching gears. But anyway, we're back with Paul. Paul, it's again, glad to have you. It's great timing, because we set this interview up a couple months ago, and just so happened I was talking to your brother, who, for those of you that don't know, his brother is Dr. J. Not the Dr. J, but his brother is a doctor. But talking to him, and he told me, he says, you got to get my brother on, and we got to talking, and just so happened that it was the week before, which is perfect timing, and love having you on. And is it, as far as the volunteers go, is it too late to volunteer?
Well, we do have over 1,700 volunteers already registered, so we're pretty well covered this year. We're always looking for new volunteers, though. The volunteers are really the heart and soul of the tournament. There's been a lot of these volunteers. We had the volunteer party just this past Monday, and we had different volunteers stand up after they've, who's been there the longest, and we had 2 or 3 different people that have volunteered for over 43 years now, so which is just phenomenal to see. But so right now we're pretty in good shape, but please think about us for next year. We can always use new bodies, and it's a great family to be a part of. They have a great time doing it together. They've developed friendships over the years that it really has become a family, and it's a lot of fun.
What are some of the responsibilities or jobs that a volunteer would be handling during the Classic? I'm sure there's too many to mention, but what are some of the things you could be doing as a volunteer?
Sure. There's as you said, there's a ton of different things that need to be done, from things like parking to the biggest committee is the Marshals Committee, where we have anywhere from 10 to 20 volunteers on every hole every day of the week, and that's typically where we have the biggest need. And there is some training that's involved with that beforehand, but that's really making sure that the spectators are aware of what's going on and don't interfere with the course of play. It's helping the players out as they are finding their balls, helping them with a variety of different things, and just making sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing out on the course. So that's the biggest committee. Scoring committee does some neat things, and that's typically been a very difficult committee to get on, because it is a lot of fun. People will walk with the pros inside the ropes and keep track of their scores, and we have shot links, people that are using lasers from stands that are measuring how far the pros have hit their balls on certain holes. And when you see all the statistics on TV about the longest drives and who's got the most accurate driving statistics and closest to the holes and all those things, that comes from those laser operators that are on just about every hole.
And those are local volunteers?
So the PGA brings in some of their own ShotLinks people, but for the rest of it, it is local volunteers that, again, obviously have to go through some training ahead of time. And we're fortunate to get a lot of those same people back. There's a lot of people that come in from out of town and will, on their own dime, will rent a hotel for several days, and they just love coming in and doing it. So
now, when you say your own dime, you've got to wear specific clothing.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what you would have to wear.
Sure. So we have a volunteer golf shirt that is John Deere Classic specific, and they will ask you to wear a specific color of shorts, but the volunteer is responsible for buying that shirt, and we also have hats that are available. There's a couple of different types. There's a regular golf cap, there's a visor, there's a straw hat or a floppy hat, and the cost of that is, I believe, $25 for the golf shirt, and typically about $10 for the hat. Now, the golf shirt this year is a Callaway golf shirt. It's a very nice, high-quality golf shirt, so most of our volunteers don't have any problems, spending $25, knowing that it is for a charitable cause and that it's a shirt that they can wear for many years to come.
And as a volunteer, the days that you're not working, you can come and watch the Classic? That's
correct. So if you're volunteering, we typically ask that people volunteer 2 days, but your volunteer badge gets you into the tournament all week long.
So you can come any day you're not working. And how many days are you expected to work? Is there a limit, or do you have to work so many hours?
Well, we do ask that you work 2 days. There are some that will work every day, and there are some that just schedule may only allow them to work 1 day. We have several, particularly with the Marshals. We're very fortunate to have several of the local service groups, the Rotary clubs, the Kiwanis clubs, that will marshal a hole. So Bettendorf Rotary, for instance, is in charge of hole number 1 for the entire week. And so they might get some of their members that will be out there every single day. They may have some that will only be out there one day. But in general, we ask that people volunteer 2 days.
Now, for the normal person that's coming into the Classic, they pay, what is the admission?
So the admission, if you go online, johndeereclassic.com, you can buy tickets online. And I believe the general day is $25. There are upgrades that you can do. There's clubhouse tickets that I believe are $35. That allows you access to a certain part of the clubhouse. It doesn't allow you to be where the pros are inside the clubhouse, but it does allow you to be in a hospitality area. There's also bathrooms in there. It's air conditioned. There's a bar in there. So a lot of people like to upgrade to that type of a ticket. And then the third way you can upgrade is there is a Greenside Club that is a air-conditioned tent that's right on the 18th green. So for an additional, I think it's about $30. I think all in you're looking at $60 for the day. Get you into the tournament, get you into the Greenside Club. You've got great viewing of the 18th green. And it's air conditioned. You have the ability to purchase alcohol, to purchase food and beverage throughout the day, right there in the Greenside Club. And that's getting close to sold out for the weekend, but I believe there are still some spots available, and that can be purchased online as well.
So you volunteer for 2 days. You buy the shirt. You dress accordingly. But for the other 3 days, because it basically starts Wednesday is the Pro-Am, and then the tournament itself starts Thursday, you get free admission for the rest of the weekend. So you're saving $50 to $75, $80 depending on what you're wanting for tickets. You're saving quite a bit of money by volunteering.
Absolutely.
So it's a good deal. What shape's the course in right now?
I'll tell you, the course right now, so the course, we shut down on Sunday, so it's had a chance. We've had a good year for growth, but our superintendent out there, Alex, has done a phenomenal job. I would say that the course is in the best shape that I've ever seen it. This is Alex's 3rd year at TPC Deere Run. He's been within the TPC system at some other courses, but this is really his 3rd year of being the head guy here, and he's put a program in place that you can just see how now in the 3rd year that it's really worked out well. And I think anybody that comes out there will see that it's in absolutely beautiful shape.
And if you've never been to the John Deere Classic and you've never been to TPC Deere Run, it's worth the price of admission just to walk that course. It, like Paul said, it is beautiful. And if you're wanting a little exercise, it's definitely going to give you some exercise. That hole on the par 3, I believe is it number 5 or number 6? Trying to walk up that hill.
It's the 3rd hole.
Oh, 3rd hole.
Yep.
Holy cow! That thing that'll give you a heart attack if you're not in shape. It's definitely a course that it's going to get you in shape. For a Midwest course, it's pretty hilly.
Without a doubt, you after you walk it, you gain a sense of appreciation for some of the caddies that are lugging around these huge bags, and along with some additional equipment. And they're out there in the middle of the heat and in the middle of the day, and some of them are in great shape. Some of them don't look like they're in all that great shape, and I'm always amazed that they make it around, but they do. So it's a workout for those guys.
Yeah, it's back, and it's been 15 years ago or so, the Americans for Disabilities were lobbying, and I can't remember the guy's name. You could probably help me out.
Casey Martin.
Casey Martin, exactly, was filing a suit so he could walk, and he had a disability. So obviously, it's not like he was trying to do it for an advantage. But man, I can honestly tell by walking that course, because I'm sure it's not the hilliest, but it's definitely not the flattest. I can definitely tell where you would have an advantage if you're riding in a cart, because it'll wear you out.
Well, just this weekend we saw that the PGA Championship the leaders ended up playing 36 holes on Sunday. And so believe me, you've got to be in shape to be able to do that, to not only physically be able to do that, but then to also mentally get through the challenges of grinding out on every shot, and it'll wear you down. And then if it's hot and humid at all, then it can really be a tough day.
And if you've never looked into what a PGA competitor, or LPGA competitor for that matter, goes through, they don't just walk up, hit the ball, figure out how close they are, and walk up, hit the ball. I had a friend of mine one time that was a caddy at the John Deere Classic one time, and the pro asked him how far to the pin. He goes, about 210 to 220. He goes, well, which is it? I mean, they want to know the exact yardage to the tee. So those guys, like you said, not only have to be in physical shape, but they mentally, they're with it.
They play a different game than you and I do.
You got that right. They play a lot different game than I do. You probably play a different game than I do, and then they're even a step above that. But yeah, I'm not a great golfer. Love to play, but I'm not very good at all. Getting back to your job and your specific job, in years past, I work at the airport. That's my full-time job, but we always get ready. The last day of the Classic is the charter to the British Open, and the chair is usually on that, is it not? Is he not?
It's usually the immediate past chair.
The immediate past chair.
Yeah, so the chair still has duties through the closing ceremony and then after the tournament. So the immediate past chair is typically one of the hosts, and we typically have two different people that are associated with the tournament that act as hosts on that jet, just to make sure that the players' experience doesn't just end when they hop on the plane, but that anything when they get to the British Open that works as smoothly as possible. So I was very fortunate 4 years ago in 2012 to get to be one of the hosts on the jet when we went to Royal Lytham St. Anne's, and so we flew into to Birmingham, and it was a phenomenal experience. It was an extremely unique experience, and this year obviously we don't have the jet, so since we had our date changed, but next year we'll be back in our same time slot. We'll be the week before the British Open, and we'll have the jet again next year, and I look forward to being a host on the jet again next year.
So last year's host or last year's chair didn't get to participate this year? Or?
Well, there's not a jet to be on, so
it was a bad year to be last year.
Well, so Chad Everett was last year's chairman, and he did a phenomenal job, and he's actually going to be a host on the jet next year as well. Great. So he will get that chance. It'll just be a year delayed. So we'll go over there together, and very much look forward to it.
What other traveling do you get to do as chair?
This year, well, for the last 2 years, really, there's the PGA Tour has meetings both in the spring and the fall, and the year that you're chairman-elect and the year that you're chairman, you go to both of those. So I've been to 4 different PGA Tour meetings, and those were great. It was fun to be able to just to talk and share experiences with tournament chairs and tournament directors from all the other PGA events. Just learning a lot more about what's being done at other tournaments. Then I also went with Claire on 2 other trips. I met him down in Phoenix at the Phoenix Open to do some recruiting. Yeah, it's not as glamorous as it sounds, that's for sure. But we literally stand all day on the driving range and just try to talk to the pros when we can. You can kind of sense whether or not they're in the mood to talk and be bothered, and some are as friendly as could be, and some are very businesslike and don't really want to be bothered. But at the end of the day, after standing on your feet for about 12 hours, it doesn't sound too exhausting, but your legs are certainly tired. Had the opportunity to go down to Houston, to the Shell Houston Open, and do some of the same things. And we were actually invited to play in the Monday Pro-Am there, so got a chance to see more about that tournament and how they do things. And then the PGA Tour meetings in the spring are always the days leading up to the Players' Championship. So that's down in Ponte Vedra, Florida. So after our meetings, we had a chance to hang out a couple of days afterwards at the Players' Championship and talk to more guys there.
Real quick, TPC Deere Run. What does it take for a course to be a TPC course? And how many TPC courses? I mean, I forget how many there were when Deere Run was evolved, but there's quite a bit more since then, isn't there?
Yeah, I would guess, if memory serves me correct, there's about 25
Right.
TPC courses around the country, and it's not a designation per se. The PGA actually owns those courses.
Oh, okay.
So, Tournament Players Club is a subsidiary, if you will, of the PGA Tour. Okay. So they own and operate those courses. The employees that are at TPC Deere Run and other TPC courses, in essence, are part of the whole PGA Tour.
All right. And there's one more qualification to come up for the tour itself, or for the tournament itself.
So Monday there is a qualifying tournament out at Pinnacle Country Club. They had a pre-qualifier this past week to whittle the field down to it's about 60 players, I want to say, and they're vying for 4 spots. And you get some extremely good golf at that event. So there's going to be some guys, one player in particular that would be exciting to see in our field is Bryson DeChambeau. He's an exciting kind of new golfer that was playing at SMU, had an extremely good amateur career, won the U.S. Amateur. He is known for the physics of the game and how he's brought science to his golf swing. Many people might recognize him from the fact that all of his golf clubs are the same length. So he's figured out some science that shows that on a single plane swing, if he has the same length of club, now they each have different degree of lofts, and he's figured out how those would have to change his pitching wedge because it's longer than yours and mine, that it has a different angle to give him the distance that he's looking for. But so he's a unique player, and a lot of people enjoy watching him play. He has limited status right now on the PGA since he just decided to turn pro this year. He's out of sponsors exemption, so we couldn't give him a sponsors exemption. So he's going to be out at Pinnacle on Monday trying to qualify to get in our tournament, and we certainly hope that he does. So there'll be 4 spots available on Monday for guys to get into our tournament.
Still 4 spots available, and then you've already filled one with the Iowa sectional.
That's correct. The Iowa Sectional PGA has a tournament every year that the winner of that tournament gets into the John Deere Classic. And this year, it's a local guy, Ryan McClintock. He's actually been the assistant pro out at Davenport Country Club for several years. He played college golf at Western Illinois, and he's qualified in the past to play in the PGA Championship, maybe not the PGA Championship, but the PGA of America, their tournament. That's a great tournament each year.
Speaking of golf, give a little shout out to the stations here in Erie, Illinois, and Callan Smith, who is a Erie graduate and about 29, 30 years old, maybe a little older. Just won the Quad City Amateur Tournament. So give a little shout out to Callan. And
congratulations, Callan.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see more great things out of him. And unfortunately, our time is about up. Mr. Scranton has to get back to Deere Run to prepare for the tournament. And man, it's been a pleasure. Appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you filling us in, and we hope people can get out and volunteer next year, because that's how the tournament goes. Without the volunteers, like you said, they're the heart and soul. Without the volunteers, we don't have a tournament.
We can't get it done without them. It's absolutely essential, and we're extremely fortunate to be in a community that is so civic-minded and lends their time and their energy and their pocketbooks to this tournament. And last year, the tournament raised over $8.7 million for close to 500 local charities in total, which put us in the top 5 of all PGA Tour events and number 1 per capita out of all events by far. And it works out to about $23 per person in the Quad Cities. Wow. of a benefit. So we're extremely fortunate. We're hoping this year to be able to match or break that record. Our previous record prior to last year was $6.5 million. So we really had a huge year last year, up over $2 million. We're hoping that we can make the Quad Cities proud again and deliver some pretty exciting numbers.
Well, we appreciate what you guys do, and again, it's something the Quad Cities looks forward to every year, is our own PGA, our own professional sport, which is the PGA Tour coming to town for the John Deere Classic. But I'm going to let you get out of here. I know you're in a hurry and you need to get going, so I'll let you out of here. Real quick plug. Coming up September 10th, we're having Rebels on the Run Country Music Fest. And one of the guests there, actually the headliner there, is Brushville. And just play a quick Brushville song. This is Baby's Got Her Boots On. Hi, it's Clark Mortensen from Mort Sports Corner on Vintage Radio 105.5, sponsored by the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Join us every Saturday from 10 to noon for one-on-one interviews and sports ranging from T-ball to the big leagues.